Thank you so much for coming, giving us an opportunity to tell you about what we can do in your city around all intersections. We're going to talk to you today for about an hour, either an overview of what a smart intersection is, why we're doing it, and where we're doing it, and what it's all about. So we'll start off with some introductions. I'm going to start at this end. This is Luke Liu. I'm formerly an interim transportation manager at the City of Ann Arbor, and is now a consultant to the city working for a company called AACVTE. And Luke will be telling us about why the city is involved. And Dr. Henry Roux is director of the University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute and former director of the MC's University of Michigan's Public-Private Research Partnership that is now part of UMTRE. He's also professor and partner of civil and environmental engineering at UVM, and he will be telling you about the infrastructure and about the experiments and the research that you do. And last and definitely not least, Erin Milligan, founder and CEO of P3 Mobility. I've been working with Erin a long time, so she's PC Mobility are big technical providers of technology into the program, so you do get. But in addition, Erin is well known in industry for driving the passion in the funding, how we paper and how we do it and how we roll it out, etc. Myself, Andy Donaldson, I've been doing connected vehicles for about 11 years now, being with the university just a few months. My own background in engineering, mostly automotive, as of 10 years in big events. But I'm going to hand over to Erin, who's going to tell us why we do this.
Well, thanks everybody for coming today. Hello? It's as good as it's going to get. Thank you for coming. I'm so excited to see this turnout that is here today. I didn't think you would get this many people. So I want to start, I always like to start in these things by asking how many people in this room have been in a car crash in their life? How many people have a loved one who's been in a car crash in your life? We're all impacted by crashes that happen on the roads and in the cities you live in, and sometimes really significantly impacted. I have 3 sons, and 2 of them were raised here in Ann Arbor. One of them was in a car crash. He was 18 years old. He was T-boned on Ford Road just at the exit from 14. T-boned by a red light runner. Car was totaled. He was fine. He walked away, but he did suffer a very debilitating concussion. It caused him to lose a full year of engineering studies and still causes him debilitated head out away. That is an example of the crash that can be avoided with the kind of technology we're going to talk about today. When that crash happened, I didn't know about this technology. I know that these kinds of crashes could be avoided, but it came to light later. And once I learned about it, I felt called on a mission. I'm trying to figure out how to get more of this safety technology on the roads. So why are we doing it? The cost of crashes is enormous. If you've been in a crash, you know what you suffer through, the hassles of getting your car repaired, the hassles of having to go to the doctor, to have ongoing visits, the physiotherapy, sometimes surgery, sometimes you lose the ability to do things altogether. The numbers tell a really compelling story. So these are numbers of crashes that have happened over the last 5 years in Southeast Michigan. Broken down by county. We've been doing work both here in Washtenaw County as well as in Oakland County. And you can see the numbers are really high. Deaths are high, disabling injury is high. Evident injury means that you've had to go to the hospital for something. There's something obviously evident that has been injured. Possible means you think you've been injured, but it's not entirely clear. No injury, obvious, and then property damage only. Property damage numbers are big, and that is a significant input to the cost of crashes, which is what you're going to see in a moment here. These numbers are staggering, almost unbelievable. Again, over 5 years, bottom right-hand corner, you see the grand total, $25 billion over 5 years. And we have technology that can prevent these crashes from happening. So why aren't we doing it? It's a complicated ecosystem. It takes road operators working together with car companies, working together with technology companies, working together with financing programs that are interested in this technology. It's a complicated ecosystem. But here in Ann Arbor, in partnership with the University of Michigan, we're working to showcase all the technology elements. So that point of the delivery plan can be checked off, and we can work on bringing all the other pieces of the puzzle together. Last slide I showed you is the cost of property costs associated with crashes. This slide talks about the comprehensive cost of crashes. Now we're talking up to $92 billion over 5 years. That comprehensive cost means it's taking into account the emotional impact that a crash has on your life if you have one, because the costs are much more than just property. Lives can be changed. As I said, my son still suffers debilitating headaches now, 10 years after his crash happened. And I've never asked him to put a dollar amount on that, but I know as his mom, I would pay a lot for that to have never happened and for his life not to be impacted that way. These are the type of crash types that have happened in Southeast Michigan. You can see, surprisingly, that emergency vehicles are quite high in the number of crashes, as are pedestrians. Red light runners, gotta go back, sorry. Red light runners, which is kind of crash my son had, also cause a very high number of crashes. School bus, especially important because their kids are on them. And then work zone crashes, also very high and quite preventable. So just want to set the stage with those numbers. I think it always helps to put numbers to a story. And then we're going to turn it over to the rest of the team to talk a little bit more about what the technology elements are in this project and all the testing work we're doing.
So in my own case, when I was younger in college, my wife at the time, she's still my wife, sorry. It's just that crash was really drastic. She was doing temporary work for the United Nations in New York City. And when I saved enough money, I've gone and visit her on a weekend. So one weekend I was on the way back, she sent me off to a train. Then a moment later, before I even, my flight did not even leave Newark yet, she called me and she was crying. So she was hit by a cab from Avenue. So that was a typical type of pedestrian to motor vehicle crash where a car is making a U-turn as part of a boulevard. Driver was not paying attention to the pedestrian in the path of the vehicle while checking for another approaching car. So with all that, the city has evolved the process quite a lot in terms of looking into the data, the crash data. Many years ago, the city relied on a very general crash statistic, how many numbers, percentage. And over the last few years, the city really dived much, much deeper into each crash with all the details. And what the city found is that with serious injury crashes, there's a lot of variety in the same category. A broken wrist can be categorized just the same as internal damage. So starting about a year and a half ago, the city really started to look at each individual crash and use a different metric, which is the police crash investigation. Whenever there's a police call out for crash investigation, that's a good indicator there's something very serious happening. So now the process has evolved so that this new metric is part of the statistics. And going back to the city's transition plan, this plan is a set document. Typically for any agency, this plan would be updated every 10 years or so. And Ann Arbor's transition plan was last updated in 21. And there is a living piece of the document that is what they call cleared location. So that's basically the high injury locations. That piece is being updated every 2 years now. So the effort, the resource the city has access to, they're always being channelized and optimized to those locations. And coming back to the transition plan, there were a total of 22 strategies. And the last one, number 22, is specifically talking about connected and automated vehicle technology and how the city should evaluate its application and impact to the city's business. there are other strategies in the same document. That's all these four I'll find here. They're related to the application. So corridor and intersections with most serious crashes, that's the one I just covered. And the safety and the visibility at uncontrolled crosswalks. So this is a type that over the years the city has seen a few cases where a tragedy happened. So coming back to this project did involve installing devices at 4 uncontrolled crosswalks on Plymouth Road. So those could be serving as model intersections or other locations in the city or other agencies across the country. Then Andrew already covered quite a bit about the transit services as to improving the frequency and consistency by delivering an application called Transit Signal Priority, which is about that. Just turned on in the last few days. So yeah. And then as to the city's effort, why this project is happening in Ann Arbor, this is really going back to how the city has been trying very hard to improve the infrastructure, the unseen part. That is the fiber connection that's underground. Starting from the late 90s, way even before I joined the city, the city started, whenever there's a construction project where pavement is taken away for underground utilities, city started putting fiber down. And over a few years, this fiber network is taking shape. So in about 2004, the city really started focusing on building more fibers as its own type of project to finish this fiber cable interconnect. That's what really allowed the data from connected vehicles, from those units, to flow on the city's data infrastructure. So over the last few years, for my 10 years with the city, there have been at least 4 projects I can recall where the city either replaced the entire downtown fiber or built new fibers to reach intersections where they did not have communication before. So with all that, I think it's earlier last year, all the signalized intersections in the city are connected by fiber, which is like 100%. That really is a turnaround feature to enable this technology to be deployed at all the intersections. So I guess with all that, I'll turn to Henry to talk about some intersection applications. Thank you. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Andrew and Aaron. This is great. You have already set up the background. Let me shift to my slide. My name is Henry Liu, and the project PI, principal investigator at the University of Michigan. And so Andrew has already talked about in terms of the technology overview, essentially what we are doing at the intersections. In terms of the equipment wise, we have 3 major pieces. One is the sensing piece, and we put some of these intersections have cameras, LiDAR, and radar. And also then the processing piece, and then there's the computer either at the intersection or at the city hall, and then also the communication keys, right? So there's CV2X roadside unit so that they can broadcast messages so that the vehicles will be able to receive those. And then we are, in part of this project, we're installing about 21 intersections. And then through the follow-up project, which is the Ann Arbor Connected Environment 2.0 project, we're extending these to 75 intersections. So Ann Arbor has about 150 signalized intersections. So we're covering roughly about half of the intersections through these 2 projects. And though the picture shows you in terms of where those locations will be. And I will say this is still the nation's largest urban testbed. There's many more test bed available around the country related with connected vehicles, but this is probably the largest in terms of urban test bed, and since 2012. And so I want to mention that we have developed at the university. We have developed what we call edge cloud architecture, and so when we talk about it, essentially the equipment will be installed. We have been installing at the intersection, process this sensing raw data, and then getting the messages and through the roadside units. At the same time, some of the information also being sent to the cloud, and then for us to further process and then retrain the model to get even better results. And so that's what we are doing. And then so other than sending messages to connected automated vehicles, I also want to tell you how we can utilize these systems to help us to improve in terms of the intersection safety. As of now, even your vehicle doesn't really have a connectivity through the static systems. And so one of the intersection I want to show you with our instrumentation is this Houseworth and State intersection. And so many of you probably know this intersection. It's very close to Costco, and it's a two-lane roundabout. We can also tell you that this intersection is one of the most crash-prone intersection in the city, and it's also on the top intersection list in the state in terms of the number of crashes. And so at this intersection around at the four corners, we put each of the corner we have a Wismar camera, which is these are fisheye cameras. And so the reason we use these fisheye cameras is because these camera distorted the image, and so you can see the image we're getting, and so that because the image is distorted, you can't really identify anything related with vehicle itself and also drivers, and so there's no personal identifiable information will be collected from these data. And then at the intersection, we also do object detection tracking, right? So we detect the vehicles at the object, we track these vehicle objects. We also predict in terms of what the vehicle future trajectory will be, and so that when you see on the right-hand side, when you see these are predicted 2 seconds into the future, into the future trajectory. Okay, and so that's what we essentially what these can be the system will be doing right now. And then so one of the things I want to tell you is that we use this information to identify crashes, and more importantly, we use this information to identify near misses or conflict. And so many of you know, like you have a crash happened at intersection. There's police report related these crash will be archived. And then University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute, the institute I'm working, we also maintain the Michigan traffic crash facts. And so every year, last year, so for middle of this year, now this middle of this year, last year, 2024, all the crash report related what happens in the state of Michigan will be archived at the University of Transportation Research. So we can pull out every crash. Essentially, these are public information. You can actually go on to the Michigan traffic crash website to see these case report as well. And so, how many will be for two-lane roundabout? Do you know what is the number 1 or number 2 rules for the two-lane roundabout? I know you probably know single-lane roundabout, but for two-lane roundabout, what are the things you have to take? You know. Go fast. Don't do that.
They're a little pretty. They're not turning right away. That's not going the next.
Very well, very well. So for roundabout, number 1 rule at the roundabout, particularly two-lane roundabout, when you approach to the roundabout, yield to those vehicles inside of the roundabout. So those vehicles inside of the roundabout, they have right of way. So you're supposed to yield to that. Second, which is more confusing for the two-lane roundabout, is if you are in the inner lane, you can then turn left. If you are in the outer lane, in the outer lane, you can turn right, you can go through, but you cannot turn left. You are not allowed to turn left. And because the inner lane vehicle might exit from the intersection and not create ongoing crosses. And there's one of the major reasons that crash happens at this intersection. And at this intersection, roughly, at the moment, there's about 5 to 6 crashes every month. Okay, so it's about 70 intersection, 50 to 70 crashes at this intersection. And because of this roundabout, so the speed is slow, about 15 miles per hour in terms of cruising speed at the roundabout. So usually these crashes just collision. There's no injury or fatality at this intersection. But those are low intensity in terms of the crash. So I want to show you some of these things, some of these crashes at the intersection we identified through this system. Let's see whether it is. And I see this is the outer lane vehicle want to turn left. Inner lane vehicle want to exit and not create a crash. And then for evaluating the safety performance, let's say if we do something at the intersection, we're trying to evaluate this really help us to improve the safety performance. Then the traditional way of doing this is to accumulate the data for the last few years, because again, crash is a rare event. Even at that intersection, each year we probably could accumulate 60, 70 in these crashes. Still, these are rare events. So to help us to quickly evaluate in terms of any safety improvement, and near miss is another measures that we oftentimes use, but we do not have a very good measurement of. And through this system, smart intersection system, what we have developed is to develop these, through this video, develop these measurement system to identify these near misses. And you can see from, you probably see that there's some, still you can see that's a near miss, okay? So from the intersection, we have 100 times near misses at that intersection. So you can quickly identify have your really improve the safety or not. So I'll show you some more in terms of crash happen at the intersection. And so these are all police identified from the police report as well. And I want to show you that at the intersection, in terms of the near misses we collected, this is 1 month of the data we collected from that intersection. We find there's about 400 conflict or near misses happen at the intersection, but more than half of these are failed to yield. So when the vehicle is approaching the intersection, they did not yield to the vehicles inside of the roundabout and not result into near misses or crashes. And the number two reason for crash or near miss to happen at the intersection is improper lane change, which is the outer lane vehicle turning left. And so this is actually coming from the Ann Arbor Police Department in terms of how to navigate through the two-lane roundabout. And so you can see number one thing, yield to the vehicle inside. And number two, you need to correctly use the lane at the roundabout. Okay, so we have the system at 20-some intersections, not only for this roundabout, but many of the intersections in the city of Ann Arbor, we have these
system being installed and encrypted already. So one other thing I want to tell you that University of Michigan theme also is the top theme. Just won the intersection safety challenge posed by USDOT, and we also waiting for stage 2 complication for this intersection safety challenge, and then a lot of the technology we utilize to compete at the USDOT intersection safety challenge was developed through the smart intersection project. So with that, thank you very much.
I'm back to talk about money again. The first set of slides we're talking about the cost of crashes. Now we're going to talk about the cost of the technology to prevent those crashes. So far, all the work has been done here in Ann Arbor. It has been funded by different grants that I think are mostly U.S. Department of Transportation grants. My company, PQ Mobility, has also been working on a lot of other projects that have been funded by the U.S. Department of Transportation. There's not enough money sitting in the U.S. Department of Transportation's bank accounts, our bank accounts, because that money comes from us, to pay for the deployment of this technology across the country. So one of the things that we're looking at in this project in Ann Arbor is what would sustainable funding or financing look like? The U.S. Department of Transportation last year released its national deployment plan. It's very committed to deploy this technology across the country because they know it saves lives, it prevents crashes. They know the cost of those crashes. They have made some commitments about monies that will continue to be made available through different programs they have. There's a SMART grant program, which is all about making war intersections smart. There's surface reauthorization monies. Those are monies that get set aside at the federal government each year and then made available to the states for purposes of building our roads. But they're saying portions of those monies can also be used for these kinds of technology deployments. But their goals are aggressive and for good using, because the faster we get this technology out, the faster it is going to prevent crashes from happening. The USDOT has said that in the next 10 years, by 2036, they want to see 50 interoperable V2X deployments. Interoperable means if I've got this technology in my car and I'm driving around here in Ann Arbor, and I take a trip to Chicago, it's going to work just as well in Chicago as it's going to work here. You can't have different cities doing different things. So the project here in Ann Arbor is part of helping all these different cities align to these national goals by showing how the technology works and making sure that what we're doing here is standards aligned. We're going to be paying attention to that. And so that it can be interoperable with these other projects. We want to have 75 of the large metro regions, or 75 large metro regions equipped with these kinds of signalized intersections in 10 years. So there's a few different ways these projects can be financed. This is called the P3 project of the River Spectrum. That doesn't mean our company. Although we are P3 Mobility, we call ourselves P3 because P3 stands for public-private partnerships. And that's just a definition that's used, a term that's used when the public sector is working together with the private sector to get things done. It gets used a lot for things like building hospitals and schools and stadiums. It gets used for building roadways. It's new to think of it as being used for technology deployments. But when you think about this kind of technology deployment, there's sort of a spectrum of delivery options. Over on the one side, it's all public monies that are going to pay for it. And over on the far right side, it's called a revenue risk P3, and that means a private investor is going to come to the table and take the risk of where revenue might come from in order to repay the monies that the private investor has put up for financing the project. And of course, in the middle, you have some kind of hybrid model. What's important to remember is that even when a project is publicly funded, we are also paying for, right? It's taxpayer dollars it is paying for. So the state of Utah, for example, really believes that the government there believes that the deployment of this technology should be financed by the government, paid for out of taxes, and made available to the citizens of Utah without the citizen coming to pay additionally or apart from their tax payers' bill. We haven't gotten to that point in this project, talking to the taxpayers about how they might want to think about this. We've just considered the different delivery models and how the technology could be used to support those delivery models. When you're over on the right-hand side in a revenue risk, P3, you're probably providing certain services to the roadway users and charging them for those services, kind of like a toll road. You pay to go on the toll road. And the toll road operator has done lots of studies about how many people are going to use the toll road before they decide to take a risk about investing the money to build that toll road. The kinds of services that are sometimes thought about as being monetizable in this kind of ecosystem reach things like congestion pricing. We've heard that in New York, where congestion's a big issue, and so the city is earmarking that issue by charging different amounts for different vehicles to enter. Curbside management is one that is sometimes considered, where companies are trying to double park. They're going to get charged for that, like I said, companies, delivery vehicles. But that's another possibility. Signal priority for freight vehicles or delivery vehicles that are traveling in certain times of day. That means vehicles are being charged for that service of getting an extended free lights and what they can get to the destination faster than they would otherwise. But every city's transportation issues are different. So there's not ever one solution that's the right thing for the whole country or even a state or even a county. You're going to find that different policies get introduced in different cities, and it'll be the constituents of the city, folks like you guys, who have a say in what the policy should look like here. Ann Arbor is very much about looking out for pedestrians and cyclists, and I could imagine something that somehow protects those road users would be part of the delivery model here. But like I said, we haven't done the work from this project. We've just tested out the technology. Here's an example of how the sustainable model works. When you're talking about a model where there's private financing comes to the table. So you might have public funding like these grants that I've talked about, provide seed funding. So enough money to get the project started. We heard Dr. Liu say here in Ann Arbor, 20 intersections, we're nearing up to 75, I think it is, but there's 150 intersections. Anyway, if we've been able to use these big government grants to get it started, but it's seed funding. In the P3 model, where you have private investment coming to the table, the private investors waiting for those public monies to be spent, and then they see what kind of appetite and interest there is in the deployment before they make a decision about whether they're going to put up private investment to help it expand. Because they want to know that there's users that are interested in this technology and some method of being paid back. But let's say they've made that assessment and then they put up their money, and now everybody in the ecosystem has access to a core level of safety applications for free. So there is benefit that comes. Or there might be a decision that there's the access to that core level of safety benefits only comes for a very low fee to kind of like then everybody paying some small amount towards the cost of the deployment. But then you have these higher levels of service, premium services that vehicles subscribe to because they'll mention earlier like congestion pricing of codes on pricing. And then the fees that are collected from those services go back towards paying investing goal. So that's how the sustainable model is meant to work. Like I said, that's not going to be the model that gets used in every location, but it's certainly the model that will get used to itself.
So I think we talked about why we want to do it, why we need to do this. And we talked a little bit about the technology, which is how we do this. We talked about the research and how we can advance and how we use the data that we collected. And then we talked about how we can pay for all this to happen. So I think at this point, I'm going to open this up to questions from the audience. I'm sure that, I know we glossed over 20 years of work in an hour. So here's an opportunity for you to ask any questions you like.